So we finally got that rumored Nintendo Direct on July 20th. However, it was just a Nintendo Direct Mini, and after looking at the fan reaction to this one, I'd say this was not the Nintendo Direct many fans were hopeful for or really expecting. We only got 4 games shown off to us: Cadence of Hyrule, a Battlegrounds wrestling game, Rogue Company was shown off as well, and 2 Shin Megami Tensei games. And if you're not a Shin Megami Tensei fan, it was a pretty lackluster Direct, I'd have to say. My expectations were really low for this one going into it, like I said, because it was announced to be a mini and only 10 minutes long. However, I did expect more games than what we got, so I will say even I was a bit disappointed in this one. However, shortly after watching it, I did find out that the Japanese version of this Nintendo Direct Mini actually had quite a few more games in it. Over on Twitter, at BK2128 wrote a summary of the Japanese Mini Direct. So here's their summary of what the Japanese Nintendo Direct Mini actually had. Sakuna coming out November 12th, Adelaide Ryza 2 coming out this winter, and of course Cadence of Hyrule, which was shown off here in the West. Momotaro Dentetsu coming out November 19th, Ninjala Physical Package July 22nd, Hakuaki Shinkai July 30th, Rogue Company, which we also were shown, Yokai Gakuen Y August 13th, FFCC Remastered August 27th, Captain Tsubasa Rise of New Champions August 27th, Jump Force Deluxe Edition August 27th. So I'm not sure why there was so much favoritism to the Japanese Nintendo Direct Mini. The only game we got exclusively shown off here in the West was the Wrestling Battlegrounds game. It's possible, due to the pandemic and everything, it may have been easier to work with Japanese companies, and maybe it was easier to create the Nintendo Direct Mini for those Japanese games, and they didn't have time to like translate things or something. I really don't know, but all I can really guess here is that maybe the virus was the reason why the Western version of Nintendo Direct Mini was only 4 games, and the Japanese version had a lot more stuff in it. So the Japanese version of the Nintendo Direct Mini did have Adelaide Ryza 2 in it, and we had that potential Nintendo Direct leak beforehand that had Ryza coming to Smash. We now know that that leak was false. However, something interesting did happen with Adelaide Ryza 2. Over on Twitter, at BlunZ wrote, "Ah yes, the Smash Bros. Letter with a red seal." And then if you look at the images, many people did notice in the Adelaide Ryza 2 trailer there was a letter with a red seal, very similar to the Super Smash Bros. Invite letter. So this letter being spotted, combined with the fact we had a leak for Ryza potentially coming to Smash beforehand, caused a lot of people to think that potentially that letter being in there might have been a hint towards this actually coming to fruition. However, I really think it's just coincidental. I think a letter with a red seal is just a classic looking letter. I mean, here's Paper Mario with a letter with a red seal. Does that definitely guarantee Paper Mario is coming to Smash? Probably not. The letter with the red seal is not exclusive to Super Smash Bros., even though it's become a symbol of giving a character a spot in Smash. Actually, the Super Smash Bros. Invite letter initially started with Villager, and it was really just a nod to the letters in Animal Crossing, which already had that classic letter look, a white envelope with a red seal. This has now been reused to have an invite for other characters in Smash, but it did initially just start out as a nod to something that was already in Animal Crossing, which was really just based off of a stereotypical look of a letter. So Kelios was spot on about guessing the time this one would be announced and the time the Direct would actually happen, so they were totally right about the Direct. However, of course, this being a Nintendo Direct Mini, and we only got a few games shown off, that didn't seem to be as much stuff in here as most people were anticipating, so Kelios had this to say. So Kelios quoted Nintendo and said, "Our first Nintendo Direct Mini," pointing out that first part. Kelios went on to say, "They've splitted the expected presentation, grouped, quote, useless, end quote, games, and started with the bad part. Let's wait." I'm substituting bad for a curse word because YouTube can be a little finicky about that now. When asked, do you think it will just be that Direct, or can we expect a new one soon with first party? Kelios said, "A new one expected." We have a lot of rumored games floating around right now, things like Pikmin 3 getting a port to Switch, or all those 3D Mario games supposedly in some sort of collection for Mario's 35th anniversary, which of course is this year, and none of that stuff was in this Direct Mini, and we have no release dates for future games right now after Paper Mario, so it does seem like Nintendo needs to give us some sort of announcement fairly soon here, beyond just this Nintendo Direct Mini. With several people sort of hinting that those games might be happening here, but then getting this Direct and not having any of those rumored games, I think probably what happened is that leakers got the Direct date for a Nintendo Direct, and then also had rumored information for Nintendo stuff. However, the Nintendo stuff they had rumored and the Direct date, while both true pieces of information, don't actually coincide with each other. So we'll probably still get those rumored Nintendo games. They'll just be announced at some other date. I think leakers just assumed that this Nintendo Direct would hold all the rumored stuff they've been hearing as we're getting close to the end of the year. Anyway, it feels like, you know, Nintendo needs to announce things to have things for the end of the year, but that just didn't happen here. However, that will still probably happen at some future date, hopefully fairly soon. So before this Nintendo Direct Mini actually dropped, I had this to say just in case this one was in fact disappointing, and how we should treat the leakers who were totally right about the Direct date, but it might have been a disappointing Direct. This is what I said. This could possibly be the most whack Direct of all time. Yeah, it might not be that good. It might be bad. I do hope people don't go easy on the people that were like saying we get a Direct, Nate Drake, Kelios, because they were right about this. Like, they were right, it was a Direct, and my assumption is if we don't get like a ton of cool stuff here, and they were kind of thinking that we would, probably what's going on is they heard Nintendo information and they heard a Direct date, and the date was right, but the information isn't in this Direct. It's probably in some future Direct or something. So yeah, just go easy on the leaker people if this one isn't that great. So, you know, that's all I can say. So I still totally stand by that. Kelios was 100% spot on about when we were getting this Direct. It just wasn't as exciting as I think most people were expecting, or even the people who knew about the Direct date were expecting. Kelios was 100% spot on about this Direct date, and that means that Kelios could be right about things in the future, and they're probably still right about anything they've hinted at as a rumor. It's just that it wasn't in this Direct, and we shouldn't be angry at them for being kind enough to risk actually telling us about this in advance when Nintendo only gave us about 10 hours beforehand to tell us about this Direct. Kelios could tell us about something in the future as long as, you know, we don't totally attack them over it being disappointing, which is not Kelios' fault at all. Unfortunately, people really didn't take it that way. Kelios said, "Nintendo changed and it's my fault. I'm head of marketing of Nintendo, obviously. I give you the precise date, hour of announcement, and it's not enough. Enough is enough. Going private again and won't share any more Nintendo-related informations." Kelios also said, "I'm seriously pissed off now. Leaking just brings trouble. I'm done." Push Dustin said, "Guys, stop giving Kelios a hard time. This is why no one wants to leak to Nintendo fans. You guys are too crazy. Kelios got the date right weeks before anyone else, and people are directing their hate towards them. You're just encouraging people to stay silent." I chimed in on this notion and said, "This. I love Nintendo, but any disappointment is with them for not having clear dates for the rest of the year. Even then, we can't fault them much with the virus. And one's own personal responsibility for hyping yourself. Don't attack people who risked letting us know this was coming." It's just very sad to see. I understand the disappointment. Nintendo really does need to show us something for the rest of the year here. Again, the virus, of course, is a totally legitimate excuse if Nintendo is behind and everything, but so far, pretty much what we've heard is that they're still on track, and we have rumored games that will probably have to happen this year, like the Mario 35th anniversary stuff, and we still haven't heard anything, and right now we have no clear dates for things from Nintendo directly. So I totally understand people being disappointed about this one. However, that doesn't mean you attack the people who were talking about this happening. They just knew a Direct date, and they were nice enough to let us know about it way more than Nintendo was. Nintendo only gave us 10 hours before this one, and who knows what's going to happen with the next time Nintendo gives information. Maybe we won't get a heads up at all, or it'll be shadow dropped or something. It would be a lot nicer if we had these leakers to tell us in advance things were going to happen. So I really do hope people understand not to shoot the messenger with this stuff. So before we got this Direct, over on Reset Era, King Zell said, "I hope you guys like Mario games," and the M and the S were bold, and people were speculating what that could possibly mean. Most likely it meant we'd get some Mario games here, but possibly something with the MS was actually hinting towards something, and of course we didn't get Mario games, or really anything I can say the M and S were standing for. Well, now that the Direct has come and passed, and none of that seems to have happened, they said this: "What I was told that Nintendo is showcasing their games late summer. That's why this Direct was a surprise to me, actually. The S and M hints were for 2 games that should have been revealed at that Nintendo Direct. With Nintendo especially this year, nothing is certain." So once again, King Zell probably heard some information, then heard that there was going to be a Direct, or was believing Kelios hearing there was a Direct, and thought, of course, the information they heard was going to get shown off at that Direct, but it didn't. That doesn't mean the information they heard is wrong, though. So Mario games, some hint with S and M, probably something happening in the future for that. We just don't know when. This is the first year in a very, very long time we did not have an E3. So I understand gamers are absolutely starved for information, and Nintendo, probably more than any other company, has been really silent about what's happening for the rest of the year. After Paper Mario, we have no more release date. We also have Microsoft doing the Xbox Game Showcase later this week. So yeah, I do feel like Nintendo really does have to show us something here. Over on Twitter, @UmbraTrainer wrote, Nintendo has an investors meeting in about 2 weeks. It's going to be mighty interesting to have a meeting with your investors if you have nothing to show for your first-party games for the next 2 quarters. So Nintendo does have an investors meeting coming up in early August, and they probably will want to go into that with some games to talk about or something to show for what's going to happen for the rest of the year. We also have the Xbox Game Showcase from Microsoft happening later this week, so it does seem like other big major companies will be showing off whatever they probably would have shown off at E3 soon here, so Nintendo probably would like to do the same. Again, I don't know with the pandemic and everything if Nintendo is going to be able to. It is possible they are just simply behind, and that's totally reasonable if that happens, but I do think from a marketing standpoint, hopefully Nintendo is on track and will be able to show us something soon. Also, the F-Zero Twitter account turned out to be fake. Push Dustin says, well, the F-Zero Twitter account is fake, LOL. @MassForAlligator wrote, someone reported that this account's email was actually different from the Splatoon and Mario 35th account. So yeah, it was a copycat. So I talked about this a few videos ago, but people had found an @SuperMario35th Twitter account. The interesting thing was the email address associated with it was very similar to the email address of the official Splatoon and Super Smash Bros. JP Twitter accounts, so people were thinking that this was actually just an inactive Twitter account that would probably become active once Nintendo officially announced Mario 35th anniversary stuff, which we already had rumored. Then the next day, people also found an @F0JP Twitter account with very similar stuff for the email address, though @MassForAlligator here is saying that the email address wasn't totally the same. So a lot of people were thinking the @F0JP account was legit. I did it as well, though at first I thought, well, it might just be a copycat because it happened the day after the @SuperMario35th account was found. And now it turns out it was in fact a copycat. That account, the F0JP account, posted this troll video basically. Don't go watch it, but they posted a troll video, so sadly no F-Zero games happening in the future, or at least we don't have any legitimate leaks for them anymore. However, that @SuperMario35th account is still likely legitimate. And then lastly, today is actually Arl Naja from the Puyo Puyo games birthday, so that's pretty cool. I just found out she shares a birthday with Waluigi, so that's kind of interesting. I still really want Arl for Smash. I know I haven't talked about her much since the first Fighters Pass, but I still think she'd make a great puzzle game rep. Alright guys, well that's everything I wanted to talk about in this video. So unfortunately the Nintendo Direct Mini wasn't what a lot of people were expecting it was going to be, but I do still think all those rumored games will hopefully get announced fairly soon here. If you guys have any thoughts or comments about any of the stuff I talked about in this video, leave them below. So once again, thank you guys for all the subscribes, all the likes. It really helps out the channel. So if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do so, or like the video, or leave a comment, whatever you want. Until next time, have a good one.